Oh,
Leslie's
it's
here.
already on.
Yeah, Leslie's here.
Leslie's good.
So who are you all missing?
Right now, just Bill Williams.
Bill?
Okay,
Yeah.
you guys are live now.
Great, thank you. Thank you,
It-
Madeline. All right. Quorum being present, this meeting of the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission shall come to order. The commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from municipal code of the city of Annapolis, chapter 2156. The purpose of the HPC is to preserve sites, structures, and districts of historical, cultural, archaeological, and architectural significance. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in chapter 21, section 8.06. The HPC operates pursuant to the State of Maryland Open Meetings Act, and therefore no pending application shall be discussed among commissioners outside the public hearing. Okay, that's the call to order. Next on the agenda is roll call. We have Leslie Xavier,
Here.
Bobby Collins, who serves as vice chair,
Here.
Will Scott,
Here.
Kevin Smith,
Here.
Kim Finch.
Present?
Oh, we also have John Tower, who serves as our staff, our able staff. And we have Jackie Rouse joining us from Planning and Zoning. I also see Boards and Commissions clerk, but I don't know who that is. So please identify yourself.
That's me, Madeline.
Oh, Madeline, got it. Duh. All right, great, thanks. I just noticed that you disappeared. Kimberly Consoli is our recorder. She also joins us tonight. Okay, next on our agenda, if I go over to it, is announcements. John, announcements. We'll go over any violations in a minute, but any announcements for the good of the group
Well,
or anybody else?
I wanted to talk about some old business and administrative business going forward, but I'll just say this. In terms of being able to do hybrid meetings, unfortunately, it seems quite unlikely because it's expensive. And currently, the only group that has hybrid meetings is City Council. So I don't know that there's going to be funding for it. And there's also, to some degree, a bit of pushback from boards and commissions because for some reason, remote meetings are better attended by commissioners. It's just easier for people to be in a meeting from where they are than to be in City Hall. And so that's what I have to say just for now about it. It's not a conclusion. It's just what information I've gathered.
Right. I also discussed it with Hillary because the Board of Appeals had asked about the same topic. And it's apparently there's no money in the budget or no possibility of having money budgeted for hybrid meetings. That's Hillary said that was pretty much not going to be allowed, but you can and what she said about why I guess the administration is inclined to prefer the remote meetings is that they had, the number of meetings that had to be canceled for a lack of a quorum had declined significantly, to almost no meetings being canceled because there are people on the various boards and commissions who travel. And so they think that's a good option. But she did also say, and nobody can have any live meetings until after the garage opens. So, which is, I guess, slated for sometime this summer, I guess, maybe the 1st of July, I think is their target date. But that I think there is a possibility that you could do you could do like once every quarter, you could do an alternative type of meeting. But they also feel that participation, oh, the other thing about the recorded meetings is if you have live meetings, there are no recordings at all. So if you don't attend the meeting, then nobody can go on YouTube or and
Yeah.
stream the meeting afterwards. And that's the other thing. So people would have to request to hear a copy of the recording. And that seemed,
Which is
know,
the way, yeah, so I don't know. we
that
could
seems like
have-
a real bummer, actually, because
kind of the way it was before, you needed to request
because lots of people, we do get, if you go on YouTube, you can, which is only
Yeah.
one of the ways that people can view meetings, but you can see, that you can look at the views for different meetings. And I think that's a real asset that people can go back and either watch on City TV
Yeah.
or on YouTube a meeting and find
Mhm.
out what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely is.
that's the state of affairs at this
Yeah,
point.
well, we can have continuing discussions for a while. I actually personally feel pretty strongly about it, so I'm going to continue personally lobbying, and I'll, of course,
All right, well, that's a
keep
good
you
idea.
involved.
Right,
My feeling perhaps is that our public meeting should be public, and maybe our administrative meeting could be otherwise, but that's one option when we get there. I think we lose quite a bit in terms of relationships with our constituents when we're not live. But I do get the fact that we get much better participation. But I'll personally lobby a little bit more. I am involved in other organizations where they seem to do this with not an expensive lobby. So to say that bond
Yeah.
funding is never going to be available seems
Yeah.
extreme to me.
yeah,
So-
but, and the other thing I didn't really quite understand, so it's something you might inquire about, is why, if the meetings are live, they can't also be recorded.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
didn't quite, other than that's a budgetary issue that they have to
You
hire.
literally
additional
hit the
staff or
record button.
Whatever.
You literally
Yeah.
hit the record button. It's just not. So
Yeah.
we can talk about that. It's just,
Yeah.
I get the budget. They're drawing the line in the sand with the budget right now. We can just, if we feel strongly that we'll just continue to lobby for it and get it into the budget at some point. At least that's the way I feel.
The last point, Tim, that you were
Sure.
raising about money and everything. One thing that occurred to me, I would much prefer to have live meetings myself, but when you talk about the potential expense and difficulties, they can clone your voice.
Mhm.
They can clone your face. Anytime that we're in this era where, I can see there's some security risk, and I don't know if it is city through using YouTube is in any way protecting itself against that. But you take a video of us and
Mhm.
put words in our mouths.
Yeah.
Sound like us.
Happens all the time.
And
But this
without
must
forensic-
mean that this is not the real Will Scott talking.
Oh,
that's possible. My dog is very clever.
my
No, I just
grandchildren
there's more
wrecked
to
my
it
computer yesterday.
than I think we may have been told, or at least I can think of other reasons that there's a legitimate concern. But I agree that to say there's just not enough money, it does seem there's enough money if the any administration wants there to be enough money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was my point.
Exactly. If it's a priority, it becomes affordable.
That's correct. Yep. All right. Any other announcements?
I have one that's an announcement for the good of the order.
Sure.
And it I hope is of interest to you. I just throw it out there. It's not public knowledge yet, and I would not make it public knowledge. Not that too many people are going to care, but I know Leslie may be interested as well as the rest of you. Leslie and Craig Martin, about 7 years ago, roughly, I'd say, Leslie created the Architects Tour that was administered by Watermark and was a joint project of HA and Watermark. Craig Martin and I were doing it the last few years, and we met with staff recently and decided that our schedules no longer permitted us to continue doing that. And since they've not been able to find new guides that program is currently suspended.
Oh, wow.
So one reason I mention it is that all of the commissioners and the staff, if you know somebody that you think would be qualified, you should refer them at least to, now I'm having a senior moment, the coordinator over at Watermark of land tours, Jamie Foster.
Well, can we talk about this offline? I'd like to kind of find out what's going on.
Well, there really isn't. Yeah, sure, I'm happy to talk to you, but there isn't anything else going on except Craig, has a young child and a thriving business, and I'm old and decrepit, and
Well, it's
Hey, I
interesting.
resemble that remark,
Yeah,
okay?
there you go.
yeah, and we both had. It's been weighing very much on him for a few years since he had his child, and his business is doing very, very well. And I
Well,
just,
I thought he was like introducing students to.
well,
to-
he takes his architecture students and young interns and all of that such. But really, Leslie, we have not been able to recruit a single person to try it, give it a
Yeah.
try.
Maybe we can fold this into a broader discussion that Bobby and I have been having about public outreach to a certain extent. And, even talking with just directly marketing to the people who live in the historic district to give them a better idea I think it would still require a guide, which just seems to be the issue at the moment. But part of, just offering to residents information, a short guided tour of the historic district to appreciate what they have. That was another thought I had. So, of course, that would require some funding, I think, because
Yeah.
we want to offer it for free. Well, thanks for alerting us to that,
Thanks,
Will.
yeah, really.
Yeah, I really encourage you all to think about whether you're individually interested in and want to explore it, or if you know somebody that you could recommend to Jamie.
Yeah, I certainly love doing it, but I'm not sure I have the time either.
Well,
Yes,
go
John.
ahead.
Tim, tell me if this announcement is appropriate, or if we want to save it for later in the meeting.
Mhm.
The St. Mary's shoreline is being redesigned.
Mhm.
And I suspect that we will be seeing that in an application relatively soon. I'm going to a meeting at the shoreline tomorrow morning. And this one this design is far less intrusive than any that we've seen
That's great.
previously.
Yeah, good to
I
hear.
think we were making positive progress last time we saw them, so they're
This is a hybrid, and its structure is based on gabion cells. I don't know if everyone's familiar with.
yeah, we saw them before.
Yeah,
Remember,
right.
we did see gabions,
Right,
and we wondered how much could grow in them.
right. Well, that is the basis for this.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. So look forward to that. Okay. Next is approval of minutes. We have two up for and March 14th with, I think Kim and Leslie were not at present. So, and Kim Consoli, I did have one comment. There seems to be a cut and paste issue on the issue. It kind of, there's a section, I don't have it in front of me. Let me see if I can find it, where a sentence is cut and paste into from the prior minutes. I don't have it. You'll see it. It refers to the presentation from the dish people, and then ends with any other items that may come before. Do you see that if you have it in front of you?
It's line 3 in 80 compromise.
So I think if you just strike that, it will come into line. Do you see that, Kim?
All right. So it's line 3 under 80 compromise.
Yeah, under
Yeah.
new business item 1.
Such other business as may
Everything
properly come before this body will be oh, okay, I see it. Thank you.
Yeah, it captures the name of the presenter and dish. So,
All right, I'll correct it
okay,
right now.
cool. All right. So with that correction, any other corrections or changes? Can I have a motion for the minutes from March 14th, please?
So moved.
Second,
All right. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Abstain? All right. Leslie and Kim abstain?
Oh, I'm not supposed to do that. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Next is 23rd of March. Any comments on the minutes from 23rd of March? Okay, can I have a motion?
I move we accept the meetings from March 23rd, 2023.
I
Thanks.
second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay, great. Next on the agenda is new violations and status of active violations. John, what would you like to report?
I am working with Lisa Minker, who is P&Z enforcement officer, and we recently, last week, toured the historic district and wrote down the most obvious violations, not all the violations. For instance, we didn't write down every single outdoor speaker, none of which are allowed by code on every business. I know, but boy, they're everywhere. And but otherwise, we're trying to comprehensively and with even application of the code and our guidelines, see if we can mitigate the violations or issue notice of violations to the different violators. So it's a lot, and hopefully it will have a positive impact on the streetscape, because that's really what is affected.
Yeah. Are most of the code violations having to do with sidewalk furniture?
Yeah.
And
A lot of them, or lights that are unapproved and so on. So, and then I'm also working on reviewing all of the sidewalk cafe approvals and applications. And they renew every year. It's an opportunity for the HPC to have leverage over violators or recalcitrants. Or recalcitrant violators.
do they renew on a specific date each year, or is it a rolling depending on when they were approved?
They all come in about the same time, but the renewals, as with everything else, are somewhat staggered. I don't know if that's because of when people file, but
Okay.
that's
Right about now.
Yeah, right about now. Yes. It's
That's
a
become
little snowball that gets bigger.
Right,
Yeah.
they do them in conjunction with liquor license renewals. Because they also have to be, it's part of that, even though not every single one has a liquor license, they do them at the same time.
I have one particular one that I observe as a violation, and that's in front of Cafe Normandy, the elaborate framework and lights that are hanging over the street. It just is never going away. And I know we've talked about it before in terms of electrical lights hanging over the sidewalk. So
Right.
that's one that I'm particularly interested in terms of.
Yes, that one is on the list also.
So is Lisa going to write letters for all the violations? Is that what you all are
Well,
doing?
yes, and then those that we know, have had correspondence in the past will get notices of violation. And
Does that include the
and
speaker?
not an additional
Okay,
Not an additional letter, but.
because I just, over the weekend, complained to Alderman Tierney about the speaker that's on the building where the sunglass place is, adjacent to the bus stop. That, where the,
Yeah, is your complaint that it's not loud enough?
yeah, that was my complaint. I can only
Hard of
hear
hearing.
it, the
ADA, it's
words
not
when I
ADA
exit the
compliant.
building.
It is not nice to refer to a lady's age, John.
All right.
John is cruel, Will.
Whoa.
But,
I don't
I
think
don't
I've
understand
that, but
why
okay.
why that is not, nobody's done anything about that. That was
Yeah, I know
horrible.
that I'm not easily offended by things like that, but that's offensive because it's just too loud and distracting.
Well, and so Thursday, when I left work and I'm waiting at the bus stop, there were maybe a half dozen people, including touristy type people, all waiting there.
Yeah.
People can't even talk. It's so
Wow.
loud. I mean, it's
Seems to-
shockingly loud.
Seems like it violates the noise ordinance. It probably doesn't. or it wouldn't.
Yeah, it does violate the noise ordinance.
Yeah, there's some issue with why the police department can't enforce the noise ordinance, apparently.
Oh,
Because of
That's
the
what
chasing
I'm-
criminals.
that too.
So
Okay.
speakers will be the next wave
Okay.
of violations and
Okay.
NOVs.
How about the lights on Aquaterra and Fed House?
They're absolutely in this
In this wave.
group. Of
Okay.
course, Federal House has been notified many times that they're required to take them down. So we'll see what issues occur with the liquor license renewal, sidewalk
And the boat-
renewal.
And the boat on top of the chop tank.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm actually meeting with them. I can't remember if it's tomorrow or Thursday.
All right. Well, thanks for all your hard work. I know
It's my pleasure. And the historic district is my mission. And
There you
I mean
go.
that sincerely.
Right.
we really appreciate ours too.
Yeah.
And we thank you for it.
Okay. We don't have anything on the agenda on the consent docket, of course, and our old business. If anyone from 44 West Street is listening, they were informed that there were certain requirements in terms of the location, I believe, is it the exhaust hood, John?
The exhaust, not the hood itself, but the exhaust going through the roof and its
Okay.
location with relation to property lines.
And that had not been solved yet. And as is our rules of procedure, if those items are not all approved before our meeting approved by planning and zoning before our meeting, our policy or our procedure is to continue the application. So this application will be continued. That way, if anyone is listening, you keep your place in line. We will be able to place you on the agenda on our next meeting if that issue is resolved. So that 44 West Street will be continued. And again, in our policy and procedure, we that's just the fact. We don't even need to vote on that. Okay. Next is other business or administrative business. And I would like to bring up the topic of the proposed ordinance change, which came up last night at City Council on first reader, having to do with an adjustment to 2156, which the essence of it is to comply with FEMA requirements. The grade/elevation must be raised within a flood zone. And that is a requirement. The way the code was written a few years ago, I don't have it in front of me, but it's C. Actually, I can show it to you all. Let me see if I can share my screen now. The essence of this, I'll give you a little bit of background. I did watch the City Council meeting last night, and the essence was that we did ask for it to be referred to the HPC and the Planning Commission. We requested that. It already goes to Rules Committee. there was concern raised by the mayor that we don't need all these referrals because it's going to slow things down. And because he's very interested in moving it forward, and so are we. So I don't think we are going to slow it down. We just believe, I personally believe, we should be looking at anything that has to do with 2156 and providing comment. So our process is we provide comment to, we as a group discuss it. We draft a memo and we'll submit that to the Rules Committee and copy City Council. The Rules Committee meets May 5th next. So that's the step we go through anytime we look at it. Rules Committee looks at all code changes. So our
Can I
process
ask-
can be briefly discuss it tonight, think about it, talk about it again on our administrative meeting. Yeah, Will.
I just have one question, which to
Uh-huh.
me has been fundamental about this whole issue, which is, as you all know, has been under discussion for various reasons for a number of years. Has this ordinance been drafted primarily to comply with federal law? And as drafted, does it comply with federal law? And my second question, really, I guess I have three, is if it has been done in that regard and that manner, what good is our discussion at all if this is being done to comply with federal law?
Yeah. It is not, my answer is yes and no. Partially being done, you must raise your flood level per federal law. That is not what this ordinance says. What this ordinance says is you are allowed to start measuring your height from that new level. And that's not required by the federal law. So you could actually compress, you raise your base level. If your height is 35 feet and you raise your base level 5 feet, you can only build to 30 feet unless we change this. So the federal requirement is not that we must give that extra 5 feet, but I think we would all agree that would be taking away something from us. So it's not a big issue.
Yeah,
but
I don't think you
federal-
can win that.
Yeah,
Somebody like Alan Hyatt would sue the city the first time he had a project.
yeah. I'm trying to see if I can. I'm having trouble sharing my screen because it's asking me for privacy requirements. When I do this, okay, let me see if now it's working.
There you go.
There we go. All right. Now let me go over here.
I'm seeing
So
it.
can you see it okay, guys?
Yeah.
Very clear.
This is introduced by the mayor, and he acknowledged last night the reason he's introducing this has to do with the development of the visitor center on Main Street, and he wants to make sure it moves quickly. And it is a somewhat of a technicality, but here's the we have height measurement, of course, which we're all very familiar with in the recent days, 2156-170. It goes into the determination of the height itself and where they shall be taken from, the front setback line. Antennas are given some special treatment. Now this C was added, and Eileen Fogarty acknowledged this testified to this last night. There was an instance 25 years ago where the front level of a building, the grade level was raised, and they were able to add an extra height to it. So in order to avoid that, they added this very very specific clause C. It should not be allowed to increase if the elevation on the front setback line increases. Well, now we want to say we want to allow that because of the federal requirement to raise that. So they're asking for an exception here to this C, basically nullifying it in the flood zone.
So we made up the rule and not FEMA.
This is correct. There's nothing, no, this is nothing, FEMA is not really directly involved in this at all, other than the fact that they said, if you're in the flood zone, you need to raise to, I can't remember the term, but it's NAV 80, which for us is about 4 feet above where we are now.
Yeah, if I read the thing correctly, the piece that we got earlier, it's not so much that FEMA requires it, but if the occupant or occupants, if the property owners want to be able to get FEMA flood insurance.
Yeah.
I'm assuming everybody would want to do, but they're not forcing you to get it. They're saying if you want to be able to get FEMA
You
sponsored.
could qualify to get FEMA
Right.
unless you were at the flood grade, yeah.
Correct.
And
So
so
the
only
that is
change-
virtually, my son deals with property insurance, and that is basically the only way you can get flood insurance anywhere in the United States anymore.
Yep.
Private companies will not write it. It's too
Right,
large
no,
a
yeah,
loss.
Yes, that's right.
yeah. And
So
it's
basically, you're stuck with FEMA for anything that's
Correct.
Yep.
in the
Right.
floodplain. So
Right.
having a place in Florida, I totally understand this
Yeah,
concept.
and-
It's very, very, very expensive. Flood insurance is very.
Yeah, I waived flood insurance on my house at the beach. 'Cause-
I'm sitting in my
Ouch.
house in South Carolina right now, and it's the only thing we can get here, so.
yeah, and your house is probably raised.
totally
So
get
just
that.
to be clear, this little red section here is all that's changing. And it does refer to the fact that we as a city also take that and add 1 foot of additional freeboard. You'll see in section 2. We've talked about this at the Burtis House several times, trying to figure out what that base level is.
Well, shouldn't that base level be stated?
What's
That's the very first thing I thought about let's go ahead and state. So these are the kind of comments I think we want to feed back. That should be stated here. What is, in fact, to me, it's irrelevant that the city dock happens to be in AE1, but the point is anything in AE flood zones should be exempted. Yes, fine. And what is that level? So we are all on the
Yeah.
same page.
Yeah,
I would provide that as a comment back. Just for
That's
I
that's
think
what I mean
that's-
about all the amendments and things that are certain to flow, because that's such a basic and reasonable question. Anybody would ask that. Even
Agreed.
if you wanted to increase the height limit more, you'd ask that, so you knew where we all were and everybody would be on
Yeah.
the same footing.
Tim,
literally.
the staff report that got done by whoever's John's equivalent is for
Well, it's
city.
Mike Malinoff wrote that. Yeah. city
He
manager.
wrote that we're basically either 3 or 4 feet off of what needs to be there.
Yeah.
He wrote in pretty simple terms, you know, you need to be this high to meet the FEMA requirements. We're currently this high, we're off by this many feet.
Yeah.
And maybe that same simple language, I don't know if it would work universally for the entire city dock area.
I
but
mean,
it could state what the required height is and.
Yeah.
So that it's.
I mean,
written
if you
right.
look on a FEMA map, they're very explicit about, what the exact height is.
Yeah.
So,
In fact, I agree. And it just, again, it's not our role necessarily to wordsmith what the code is, but I think we can provide feedback. I am not sure anywhere else in code we reference an HTTPS website. I mean, it just doesn't seem like code to be. So, but again, that is my subjective opinion about the way the code should look consistent. But I think at a minimum, we're saying we should state what that the word is elevation requirement.
exactly.
What is the elevation? What is the elevation? And should we be using the word grade? Elsewhere in the code, I did a little bit of research. Grade is the term that is used elsewhere in the code, so not elevation.
Exactly.
So we're talking about
yeah.
the grade changing. So we can wordsmith this a little bit, but I think we understand the intent.
Mhm.
Do
I-
we?
Tim, you can do what you want in this regard. Of course, you're the chair and you would share it with us before it was said. I wouldn't worry about wordsmithing.
I agree.
The concepts, as you said, are the ones that I think we have the most authority over and are our greatest concern.
Correct. I agree. It's
The
the intent
Office
here.
of Law, and the Planning and Zoning Office are gonna be wordsmithing this.
I
Yes.
don't know how true that is.
But does any of this like ultimately affect anyone's ability to get FEMA insurance because the downtown region is considered
No,
in a floodplain?
this strictly deals with how we measure heights of buildings.
I
Period.
see. Okay.
And then, of course, moving forward, once the rising sea level resiliency is in place, it might actually take all of those properties out of the floodplain. They might be removed from the floodplain. They could be designated to no longer be in the floodplain. And then,
The city dock
Lord.
project?
The new structures.
right, it's a possibility that
Yeah.
the city dock with the flood mitigation will no longer be in a flood zone.
When they raise the park level area.
Right. And the barriers are put up and so
Hmm.
on. So
Good
it's just something to
spot.
consider. There's more than one step here.
But that's beyond this. Right now, we're really, I think, we don't, I agree with you. And we just, and from the drawings, we've seen the new base level, the new base grade they're talking about is, we'll talk about it in terms of whether it blocks the view shed or things like that. But so far, they're not raising it beyond what we would expect. If they did do that, then we would have an issue with this, but I don't see that happening. I would have an issue with this.
And this is only for new structures, correct?
New construction or additions on a roof.
Yeah, additions. I don't think it would accomplish the intended purpose if it didn't include additions.
Correct.
So you could add on to an existing building and get the new height?
Yeah, but who's gonna add a 4-foot addition?
I don't think
Theoretically,
Okay,
theoretically on top of the mall there or the old A&P building.
is it only 4 feet?
Pretty much.
What is the elevation plus 1 foot?
We don't know yet.
It's roughly 4 feet. It's
Right.
roughly 4 feet.
Okay, so
You-
you're talking 5 feet.
We are talking about basically saying a 5 foot, you're given a 5 foot, if you build a new building in District 2, which is what we're talking about, you can be 20 feet above that new level, which is 5 feet above the current level. At
But
the-
all
at
the properties that are impacted are not all in 2, are they?
Yes, they are.
In that, yeah, they had a map that went with this that shows all the properties.
Yep, and they were, I just off the top of my head, they're pretty much all in 2.
Okay, and then there are some properties where it's just like a little piece of a property.
But
How
it's
does
the
that work?
street, it's the street, it's pretty clear that it's the facade, the front facade where it hits the sidewalk, where it hits the grade. That's where the height is measured from.
Yeah.
So if just the very front of your property was in flood zone AE, it would apply to you. Is that what you're saying?
Someone could clarify that if they wanted to, but I would.
I was
that's the
just
way
curious.
That's the
Yeah.
intent. That's certainly the intent.
Okay.
Everything's measured from the front of the building.
No, I
The address,
understood that,
actually.
but there are some properties where it's barely on the property,
Yeah, yeah,
according to their map.
yeah. The Colonial or the play or the Summer Theater and the
Yeah, the
What
map
was
was
it?
the last page of this, I think.
Yep.
it was a separate.
Oh, okay. I thought the map was interesting.
Yeah. Well, if you guys are okay, look at this a little bit. Think about not wordsmithing, but generally we would be crafting a memo to the rules committee saying something along the line of, we understand the intent and understand the need. And we either agree or disagree,
Right.
and might make some friendly amendment, code amendments, which somebody else may already have done by the time it gets there.
Yeah.
It could be very brief. I don't think we need to convey the fact that we want to hold anything up here, but I do think we need to preserve the procedure that if it affects 2156, it should be reviewed by this body.
That, in this case, Tim, I think is actually the most important thing we'll be doing.
I agree.
And this height change does not negate any of our other guidelines. I mean, the fact that you could put an additional however many feet on the top of your building, you still have to follow all the other guidelines.
All the other guidelines and all of this, these requirements.
Yeah, all other aspects of the city code.
Correct. Yeah. This is a very simple little tweak, but still we're talking about a procedure here that we want to be able to comment.
Right.
We also, of course, could provide public comment at the rules committee. And so one of us could go if they had any questions. I think our comments are going to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend that. So I'm happy to draft something to kick around. We can talk about it again in the 22nd and then submit a brief memo to the rules committee for their review in May 5th.
Yeah.
And that should allay the concerns that were expressed last night that we would be holding anything up. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good, Tim.
All right. Any other thoughts on this one? All right. Any other business? I always have one more thing, don't I?
Well, I've got something for sure.
Okay. There was a presentation tonight to the Ward 1 committee, Ward 1 residents committee, which none of us could attend, but on regarding Ogle Hall and a change. I know they have a special exception that's being filed, and they were making a presentation tonight. So we'll hopefully be able to see that and get some comments from people who attended there. Yeah, John, what else?
That's also being re-advertised for Planning Commission for May 2nd. They didn't meet the advertising requirements and they were on the agenda for the last meeting, but because they had not properly notified people, they have to redo all of that. But it will be on Planning Commission on May 2nd.
Okay.
I mean, on Board of Appeals, excuse me.
That's what I thought it was Board of Appeals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully they will be able to get their act together and do the notification properly.
Okay. Well, we will expect a pre-application from them. We saw an initial pre-app a few months ago.
There's a lot of opposition from the community to the
At the
project.
time, if you remember, at the time, there were very few external changes to the building.
I think there are still very few that we've seen. So
Okay.
it's mostly a use
Primarily
issue.
the use?
It's,
Yeah, it's a use.
yes, there's huge concern about the impact of the proposed use on the surrounding neighborhood.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, John?
So going back to 99 compromise, I have shared information with our legal representation, Lisa Bell. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is, let me see, what am I hearing here? Nothing,
Oh, interesting.
nothing, not a response, nothing. So I thought I would bring it up.
Great. Well, let's go. I'm glad you did. Our issue was we didn't know who should present to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. And
And-
Lisa is in the Office of Law?
No,
She's our representative. The Office of Law is subcontracted for commissions, boards and commissions, and she's our person. Remember Cheryl?
Yeah,
Yeah, so she works with a very large law firm in DC. So the city subcontracts for boards and commissions. And I talked to her from time to time. In fact, she called me and wondered why we didn't talk to her more often. And sometimes she joins these meetings. In fact, she may be watching right now. So hello, Lisa.
well,
She says she does tune in.
Lisa, get in touch anytime you like, but sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
because Phil Dale's never rests.
Yes, so
And Phil is Phil representing the condominium association?
no,
Yes.
no.
Oh, sorry, he's representing the owner.
the owner,
Yeah, he's the rep.
Jim.
He's
So,
representing the
right,
developer.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Jim's not gonna-
condominium association has several attorneys that are representing them.
And this, again, as we've said before, we don't even need to talk about this at length
Yeah.
because this really, until they figure out who has the rights, we
Yeah.
may or may not ever see a presentation.
And the fact that Jackie said there's more than one attorney for the owners, I mean, that's the classic scenario. You got a bunch of people with the money and the time and the interest to hire an attorney, and you get a mess of attorneys in the same room. I almost stay as far away from that as I can. Except socially.
But we'll see. Well,
I
It
know
was, it got off on the wrong foot. Yeah, they shouldn't have been given the impression
Yeah.
that we could even talk to them when we
Yeah.
didn't know whether they had standing to present. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
so John, I'll reach out to Lisa if she's not watching tonight, and hopefully she will respond to you. It's not
Well,
urgent on our
it's-
part, but she should
It's
know.
not, it's not just me. It's the concerns of this group.
Yeah.
Okay, correct. Yes, that's
Yeah.
fine. All right, any other business? Okay,
Adjournment.
can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, that's great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you for the